This episode is sponsored by the good old folks over at Airbnb. This holiday season, be sure to check out the most loved homes on Airbnb by taking a look at guest favorites. Take it from me, some trips are better in an Airbnb. Now, let's start the show.
People are often horrified to learn that years and years of bending over backwards to please someone didn't make any difference with how cold or callous that person could be at the very end of it all.
I think a lot of times people don't want to talk about it, but it's like, I already got God that loves us unconditionally. When it comes to this relationship, I do have conditions.
If you're stalking someone's page 2 years back and looking at like what they wrote about...
He clocked me. I am so excited to have this man here today. We go back, all the way back to GMA. Yes, he's a renowned dating expert, a confidence coach, best-selling author, and he's known for giving real, actionable advice that helps people navigate the ups and downs of modern relationships. His latest book is called Love Life: How to Raise Your Standards, Find Your Person, and Live Happily no matter what. It's Matthew Hussey. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Keke.
It's good to see you again. You're looking as good as ever.
You too.
Thank you.
It's so much fun to be here. It's been years.
I know. But, just to see how you've continued to grow is amazing. I'm so happy to talk to you today because there's one thing anybody knows I love talking about is relationships. I don't know who doesn't. But let's start with this book. How do you feel about it being in the world, and what inspired you to write it this time?
Oh, man. I think what I've dealt with over 17 years of working with people in their love lives, because for anyone who doesn't know me, to kind of almost frame up, I've been helping people find love for 17 years. And it has been a really long journey, and a lot has changed in my mindset in terms of what I think are the most important things to cover when I'm helping people on that journey. I started out with this idea that the number one, this was way back when I started, and I was naive, and I thought, the biggest problem is that we just don't have enough options. If we create more options for ourselves, we'll make better choices, right? I was like,
what kind of options would you say?
My hypothesis was someone chooses a person who treats them badly because they haven't got better options at the time. And I was wrong. That's not true. What I ended up coming up with was a whole bunch of ways that people could go out and create more choice in their love lives. Because I thought if they have more choice, they're going to make better choices.
Yeah.
But that's not true, because there are deeper things guiding our choices, and we often gravitate towards the pain we know.
That's right.
We gravitate towards things that are familiar to us or what we think we're worthy of.
Yeah.
And, sometimes better is deeply uncomfortable to us. So then I started to evolve my thinking and say, there's something else going on here, and I need to get to the bottom of that. And so a lot of this book was around the kinds of things that we struggle with when we're looking for love, how hard it is to be single for so many of us, how lonely that path can be, how it makes us make bad decisions, because when we're in a panic that we haven't met someone yet, especially when we're on a timeline where we want to get married or have a family, especially if biologically you want your own family, that's biologically yours, that's a whole other thing that produces a level of anxiety and panic that then makes people rush into bad decisions that have long-term effects.
Yeah.
So, and I don't just deal with people in that age group, I deal with people who are 50s plus dating as well, and 60s plus and 70s plus.
Wow.
So like, I'm dealing with all ends of the spectrum, and some of the issues are the same, some are different. But what I want for people, whether they're single or in a relationship, is to find peace, to find happiness. And I think it's okay to have the goal to find love. And this book is about helping people with their goal to find love, but also to find their happiness along the way so that they're not deferring it to the time where they find love.
I love what you said about that, because I think when people hear love life, it can be really intimidating or come with the expectations of romantic love coming in and saving the day for us. I think that's been the idea, is like in life, in order to find that person, that one, which you speak a lot about. You talk about the idea of the one and how you don't really like it. Can you explain why?
Well, I think it's this idea that someone's going to come along and I'm going to feel everything I've ever wanted to feel. They are going to rescue me. They come kind of pre-made in the way that I need. And I think in many ways, the one is almost an insult to long-term relationships.
I think so too.
Because if you take two people who have been married for 30 years, they'll tell you their war wounds. They'll tell you the hard things they've got through together. They'll tell you the ways that their relationship has been built over time. And it's the way that it's been built that has made that relationship really special, not how they arrived in each other's lives on day one. You know, we need certain things in the beginning. We need a degree of chemistry.
Yeah.
I don't think we need the most chemistry we've ever felt in our entire lives. Like that's a trap, right? Yeah. So I always say, don't comparison.
That's tied to the options thing.
Well, it's like...
Because then it's like you're forever searching in a million options where it can keep getting better or worse, honestly.
Right, you're trying to optimize, and optimizing is very dangerous when it comes to human beings, because you can't just say, I want a little less of that and a little more of that without getting a whole new bag of things with that person. Everyone's coming with new challenges. So, you know, in the beginning, I always say, don't comparison shop for chemistry. You know, like don't compare the chemistry you feel with this person in front of you who might be very calming in some ways and might feel like home in the best possible way, and you can be more of yourself around them, but you don't feel the extreme of chemistry that you felt with that person you had a 3-month fling with 3 years ago.
Well, let's talk, because a 3-month fling was just anxiety. Let's talk about the delineating factors of what that looks like, because I think we hear a lot of conflicting things where it's like, love should be easy, it shouldn't be hard. But then it's like, anything you want comes with challenges. How do you actually know what it is when you are with that person that, maybe the chemistry is great, maybe it's not most extreme, but you like them, but they got some problems and you got to work with them, and how many years do I put to that, and when my bio, so how do you distinguish when a relationship is an opportunity to grow with someone or something that really just may not be right for you? Because I think that's really hard.
That's a great question. There has to be certain raw materials there that you can work with, right? And you always have to be looking at your time, because no one cares about your time the way you do. Like no one else is responsible for your time. And we often put our time in someone else's hands, and we say, if they're not quite ready for a relationship, I'll just give them more time, which in some cases might be okay to do. But if year after year you're saying that, hoping that this person's got your back, and one day this investment you're putting into them is going to come good, then very far from what you need in terms of how much they respect you, how much they show up for you, how much they invest in you. But you're thinking that the more you invest in them, the more one day that's all going to pay off. That's just not true. People are often horrified to learn that years and years of bending over backwards to please someone didn't make any difference with how cold or callous that person could be at the very end of it all. And that's a really stunning realization to have that. So you always have to be protecting yourself and going, is what I'm getting right now, is it really enough to warrant my time and energy right now? Like, is this truly enough? It's almost like saying, what's interesting to me?
Yeah.
And it can't be that what's interesting to me is that they're charismatic and tall and successful and sexy. That can't be the thing.
I'm kidding.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it's not interesting.
I'm totally kidding.
I get it.
But it wears off. All that stuff I mean,
it's
at some point we're going to not be that cute.
None of those things have anything to do with character.
Yeah. You're right.
Like, there's no character there. The number of times that I will be in one of my events and someone will stand up and they'll say, I can't get over this person. I'll say, what is it about them? Like, why did you fell in love with this person? What happened? Who are they?
I'm so scared of what they're going to say.
Everything I just said. They would be like, they're super charismatic and they do really well in life. And, I find them very attractive. And they're talking about all of these things as if they're saying, they're so kind, they have great values, they show up for me.
So I'll be honest, I'll go jump into the body of these people. What happens is, it seems, when we throw away these ideas of the one, when we throw away these ideas of and expectations of what we think a relationship is, we're left with something completely unsexy or romantic. I think that's what people are hearing in their mind. So when we leave all of this kind of quote unquote superficial stuff behind, how do we find the excitement, the romance, and the thing that makes you feel, I guess, passionate?
I'm not against excitement or romance, but here's the thing. What I notice is that people are very selective about where they have standards.
Ooh.
So they have very high When people say to me, I have really high standards, that's my problem. I'm like, really? Let's talk about it.
You're about to preach. I can already feel it.
Well, where are your high standards?
Yeah.
You have a high standard for how tall someone is.
Right.
You have a high standard for what their body looks like. You have a high standard for how
their bank account
much edge they have. You have high standards there, but you have absolutely no standards when it comes to how this person treats you.
I've seen it a lot of times. What is that?
Firstly, I think that we're going based on ego into our love life. So it's like, this person looks good to my friends. I feel good posting with this person on Instagram.
Well, now we're talking about how a relationship leads to what we feel our external validation is. So
That's
that
right.
our partner is simply just a prop, an extension of how we see ourselves.
Look at men.
As opposed to something we love.
How many men never got to date the cheerleader at high school? And then the rest of their life, they spend trying to date cheerleaders of some form or another, like that, whoever they think represents that archetype. And
it's going to fill that place. But that's exactly what you're saying this is about, is healing that aspect so that you can actually find what it is you really want.
What you really want.
You know?
And by the way, also realize that chemistry can be found in many more forms than the very specific way that we think we find chemistry, which, as you very astutely pointed out, is often just anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just getting excited because someone isn't texting us back. Be very careful. If the moment someone starts to pull away, you get more attracted. You should start suspecting yourself.
Yeah, it's that idea that you were saying that people sometimes have in a relationship where it's this constant game or challenge that at the end, she's gonna love me. Like they literally turn into that scene in Dreamgirls where it's like the whole relationship has been, I'm going to get this person to love me. And it's like, what does that say about you? And how do you need to learn from that?
And by the way, if that person does turn around and meet you, you might find yourself strangely turned off. You think that all your dreams would come true if they would just show up the way you want them to show up. But a lot of Groucho Marx once said, I wouldn't want to be a member of any club that would have me as a member, right? Now, a lot of people go into their love lives like that.
They do.
It's like, if you don't want me as a member of your club, like the way they approach people who want them is,
Matthew.
If you want me, there's something wrong with you. But you don't want me, well, you might be onto something.
Baby, this is Keke Palmer, yeah.
Look, we all know the holidays can be stressful, but do they have to be? We all know that some trips are better in an Airbnb, and that includes holiday travel. Picture this. Instead of cramming into grandma's guest room or fighting over the pull-out couch, you could be chilling in a cozy cabin with a fireplace or living it up in a spacious house with room for everyone, all within driving distance. So, for those moments when you're tired of being reminded of all the pressures of the holidays, check out nearby guest favorites on Airbnb. Find a cute little cottage on the outskirts of town, cook up a family feast in a fully equipped kitchen, play board games in the living room, or have a movie marathon with the babies. And the best part, you get to make memories in a place that feels like home, but with all the excitement of being somewhere new. Remember my Joshua Tree moment I was telling y'all about a couple months ago? I'm trying to tell y'all, Airbnb's got you covered for those local getaways that feel like a world away. It truly felt like I was on another planet, but it was only a couple hours away. So this holiday season, why not switch it up with Airbnb? You deserve a relaxing holiday season. 'Tis the season for year-end wrap-ups, and baby, Audible is coming in hot with this year's Best in Audio Entertainment. Audible's Best of 2024 picks are here, bringing you the year's top audiobooks, podcasts, and originals across all your favorite genres, from memoirs and sci-fi to mysteries and thrillers, romance and well-being to fiction. Audible's carefully curated list is the perfect way to experience 2024's finest audio offerings. You can dive into a star-studded production of George Orwell's 1984, putting a whole new spin on this grade school classic with cutting-edge sound effects and bold dramatic choices. For those who like to indulge in romance, there's Emily Henry's Funny Story, or for those looking to tap into the strength of the American spirit, you can listen to Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's memoir, Lovely One. And for my fiction fans, y'all can immerse yourself in a captivating fiction such as The Woman by Kristen Hanna or Percival Everett's brilliantly subversive James. This holiday season gives yourself the gift of imagination. With Audible, there's more to imagine when you listen. Discover all the year's best waiting for you at audible.com/bestoftheyear. I literally was talking about this with someone the other day about something completely different, but just how people can exist in this space where the moment that whatever it is gets close to them, embracing them, accepting them, the more they start questioning that.
Yeah.
What does that say to us, and how do we get through something like that when it comes to actually embracing all kinds of love in our life?
I think we've grown up with, models of love that are familiar. For some of us, it's being abandoned. For some of us, it's love is I have to fight for love. For some of us, it's I have to prove myself for love, or I have to, do everything to please people in order to get love. Oof. So then you get someone who goes out there and tries relentlessly. They get gifts for someone and they show up for them and they bring them lunch to their work, even though they've only been dating for a week. And they, because that's their weapon they know how to use. Yeah. I know how to shower you with love and praise and be there for you. And it's what they're familiar with. But to say, maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe I'm worthy of love without having to do all of these things for someone all the time. That's deeply uncomfortable for people.
And I think it really includes boundaries, because I found with myself, my answer to that was service. Like, I learned in my family, especially with a Christian background, and my father, he's a deacon, and he would do so much service. The way he showed me love was through sacrifice, through loving, through being of service to people. And it took a long time for me to understand that I could be of service while also maintaining personal boundaries, that it didn't mean self-sacrificial. Yeah. It meant sacrifices that were, in actuality, comfortable for me, that felt acceptable for me.
And by the way, romantic relationships don't fall into the category of philanthropy.
Now let's go into that.
Love isn't charity, in a romantic context.
Yeah, interesting.
Love isn't charity. Love is highly conditional.
I love that you said that, because in my now 31 years, I literally said this in my book. I actually believe that love should be conditional. And that is something that I think a lot of times people don't want to talk about. But it's like, I already got God that loves us unconditionally. Mm-hmm. When it comes to this relationship, I do have conditions. It doesn't mean you have to be a totally different person. But if we're going to be here, let's meet each other halfway.
If you have an organization that you give to, and every week you show up and you volunteer, you're not expecting anything from that situation. You are just going to give. You're just going to be in service. You cannot take that mindset to your love life. You can't just invest in someone based on how much you like them. You have to invest in someone based on how much they invest in you.
Come on.
That's the difference. It's a very, very dangerous thing to do the opposite. And so that doesn't mean, I think people often think that having standards and boundaries means going in almost with a kind of aggression. Yeah. I have to go in and I have to put my foot down and say, well, you have to do this and you have to do that, and I'm not going to go there with you unless you... It's not that. It's be very honest with yourself about what's worth your time, about what's worth your energy. Yeah. If you date someone, let's say you meet someone and they're long distance. Yeah. And then 2 weeks from now, they're asking you to fly to meet them. No. Yeah. This is essentially a stranger to you.
Yeah. Take some time with it.
Take some time, get to know them. And by the way, let's meet in the middle somewhere. Mm-hmm. There's my own wife, Audrey, who's sat over there. When we were dating early on, I remember I had just come out of a show in London, and the last couple of times we had met on my side of town. Yeah. I was coming back from LA visiting at the time, but where I was staying, we'd met near me. And I had just come out of this show, and I was in London, and I said, we were going to have a drink. And she said, why don't you come over to this bar or whatever? It was near where she lived. And I said, well, I'm over here. Do you want to come and do something over here and whatever? And she was like, let's do something over here.
You're coming here, love.
Yeah, she was like,
I'm not moving.
She was like, we've done that side of town. Come over and see my side of town. And I was like, oh, but, I think I actually had a little resistance. I was like, but please. And she was like, we can do something another night. It's fine.
I love her.
But from her point of view, it was like, we can do something another night. But what I'm not doing...
Well, that sounds reciprocal. She just wanted reciprocal. Okay, we went to your side, now let's go to my side. Exactly. Then we go to your side, then we go... It's fair.
But you can't... Those little moments are little moments where you choose yourself. They're little moments where you advocate for yourself. They're little moments where you say, are you actually willing to meet me there? Because if someone isn't, and again, you're never doing it with an aggression or or trying
to prove something.
No,
you're just being true to you.
You're just saying, I'm trying to assess whether you have any skin in the game.
Yeah.
Because if I'm always making this really easy for you, I actually never have any way of knowing whether you have any skin in the game.
It's so true. Speaking of having a personal relationship and having a wife, when you talk about your love life story, like I was mentioning what I learned from myself through my relationships and my relationship with myself is service. Was something that I had to look at differently as it became my relationship to service and love. What was that for you that you learned in your close relationships that you had to look at differently in your relationship to love?
That's such a good question. I had to learn to really let go, I think. I thought I was good at being vulnerable, and I probably wasn't very good at being vulnerable in my past. I was quite good at being vulnerable about things I wanted to be vulnerable about, like,
Totally.
Just the things that I
feel
felt
like I'm
safe to be
similarly.
vulnerable about. But like,
Yeah.
as soon as it was something that actually made me feel a bit threatened, like maybe I felt jealous about something,
Yeah.
I wouldn't speak about it. I just get passive aggressive. It took me a minute to realize I was actually safe in the relationship to be fully myself. I mean, I can remember a situation many years ago where I was honest about something, and I didn't even think it was a good idea at the time. But at the time, something had made me insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I could feel this battle of, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, because this is going to make you seem weak and pathetic and unattractive, and don't say it. And then I said it.
Yeah.
And this person said, my worst nightmare. I find that really unattractive.
No, I'm throwing up. I'm literally throwing up. I hate that when that happens.
And it really
Oh, no.
And here was the worst part, is I went away from that and I thought I was the idiot for saying it.
No.
Like I was like, I hated myself I was like, you moron, why did you knew. And the truth is, of course I know this now, I was being vulnerable with someone who wasn't.
That was the problem.
They weren't able to handle that.
Yeah, because even if it was unattractive, you say that in your brain and you be a kind person and create a safe space for someone.
100%. The right person does create that space for you, and the right person, you communicate things and things just get better. But
How did you
at the
get back
time,
from that, though? Because I think even just that one little story, I think is actually really, like, that's kind of like everybody's, what do they call it, villain origin story? Like, I opened up to someone and they literally ripped me to shreds.
Yeah.
How do I get back again? Like, was it just like opening yourself up to your relationship with your wife, Audrey, that allowed you to start rebuilding? Was it just having a safe space?
In truth, she had to pull a few things out of me.
Yeah.
Like, because I would get kind of cold, and then she'd notice I was cold. And then she'd be like, why are you being cold? And I was like, I'm not being cold. And she'd be like, so her favorite line was just like, so I'm completely insane. Like,
Right.
I am just crazy.
Do not gaslight me.
Like, just tell me that. Like, am I completely crazy? There's nothing at all that's off about your energy. Nothing.
Yes.
And then when she said that, I was like, I couldn't say that. And then I like slightly say something, and I felt like throwing up.
Yeah.
Like Pete Holmes once described crying as like vomiting. You
Yeah.
feel better afterwards, but you never want to do it before you do it.
No.
I felt like that about saying things
Yeah.
that made me feel like I could be perceived to be weak or vulnerable.
Yeah.
But what happened was I would say something and it would go well. She would say to me like, I just want to let you know, like I never see you. You're still the same attractive man to me. I just love knowing you better.
Yes.
And that was very healing for me to be able to like realize, oh, I'm actually accepted, not as the version of myself that, I come to the table as in my strong moments, which is not me, but it's certainly not the only me.
Okay, yeah, exactly. I'm so curious for her what allowed her to keep pushing through those walls, because I think so many of us, men and women, we see that in the person that we're dating and we're wondering how to get through to them. And again, when we should keep on and when the time may be never, because you may have never ended up becoming this person that said, I'll let you in.
And I can tell you, she has such high standards that if that was the case, she would have been out.
Okay.
There's no way she would not have hung around for a second. She was very patient with me in communicating that she loved getting to know me, and I don't need to be afraid to talk to her about things, or if something's on my mind, I can always share it with her. She's very proactive about creating that space for me. But My wife has the best boundaries in the world.
I was about to say, that's the power of love and the power of boundaries.
You have to have
really
both.
call somebody to be the best that they can be when you love them by showing them I have boundaries. So
Yeah,
that's
you cannot do one without the other. If you're just being compassionate to someone with no boundaries for yourself, you're in trouble. And it makes you a target, by the way, for the worst kinds of people. Like if you take a narcissistic relationship, the narcissist will feed on your endless capacity for empathy until the end of time. You know, that's like we're an endless capacity for compassion and empathy meets a relentless capacity to take. That is a really dangerous combination. And people have experienced that with, you know, there'll be people listening to this show right now who have experienced that with a parent. There'll be people who have experienced that with a sibling. There'll be people who have experienced that in a marriage. That there are some people who have an endless capacity to take. And if you have an endless capacity to give, that person can ruin your life.
I want to ask you about social media because everyone feels like they know everything about everyone these days. They can find out everything about the person that they're dating online by one click on their social media page. So how in dating do we deal with that? Do you think people should go check the page early on? Should they refrain from seeing and looking at those things? How does our perception play into our dating life and how much should we allow it to?
I think you have to, for your own safety, check someone out to see, like, do they have a presence at least? You know, I'm not talking about followers.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about, like, are they somebody in the world that, you know, I can go, well, they are who they say they are. They live where they say they live. They, you know.
So you think it's valuable. I love the how they're showing up on their pages and how they're showing up in their real life. I didn't even really think of that.
Yeah, I think.
Sometimes people
Well, there's a couple of things. So firstly, yes, exactly that. Like, am I seeing a congruency between their name and where they say they live and this and that? And does this look like a profile of someone who is who they say they are at the most basic level? I think that's important. I also think that if you go to someone's profile page on Instagram, for example, and every picture is them standing next to a jet or a Ferrari or like, you know, watches. And it's like, if you're someone who couldn't give a damn about material possessions, this person is showing you what their values are right now. They're either showing you what their values are or they're showing you what they're most insecure about and how they validate themselves. And you have to look at that and go, is this my kind of person? And
do I agree with how they want to show up in the world?
Exactly.
Do I want to show up in the world the same way?
Yeah. This is, for better or worse, this is what they think. This is how they want to portray themselves in the world. Does that align with any of my values? I actually think that can save you some time. Not the same as, here's where it goes too far. If you're stalking someone's page 2 years back, and looking at like what they wrote about.
He clocked me. No. Sometimes I just want to see how bad they're doing. Like, can I just see?
You mistakenly double tap that like.
Literally.
Baby, this is Keke Palmer, yeah.
As I was saying earlier, Audible's Best of the Year picks are in. And honey, I am set. Every year, Audible puts together a list of the best when it comes to audio entertainment. I'm talking top audiobooks, podcasts, and originals in all your favorite genres. The works, okay? Now my ears are immediately perked up when I saw that they listed Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's memoir, Lovely One, as one of the year's must-listen titles. I checked it out, and it basically felt like I was having a heart-to-heart with the first Black woman on the Supreme Court, okay? Really powerful stuff, y'all. From memoirs and sci-fi to mysteries and thrillers, from romance and well-being to fiction, Audible's carefully curated list in every category is the best way to hear 2024's Best of the Year in audio entertainment. Audible. I mean, there's more to imagine when you listen. Go to audible.com/best of the year and discover all the year's best waiting for you. Okay, before you go, I always play a game with my guests, and I'd love to play this one with you if you're down. Okay, it's called Here For It or Nah. I'm going to tell you a bunch of quotes, and you're going to tell me if you're here for it or not. The quotes are going to be from philosophers, authors, poets, etc. Bonus points if you can tell me who said it. Otherwise, I'll tell you who said it.
All right.
Is it cool? Okay. A man who truly loves you will never let you go, no matter how hard the situation is. Here for it or not? And do you know who maybe said it?
I don't know who said it. You're here for it.
Okay, this is Steve Harvey from Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man.
Okay.
So what's your reason for saying you're here for it?
Well, you know what? I don't think it's always true, but I think it's a really worthwhile thing to believe. Because
Love that.
someone can really love you, but they cannot be capable of showing up for a real relationship. So that's where I don't necessarily think is true.
That's right.
There are plenty of people who love you and they can't deliver.
Yeah.
And by the way, them being able to deliver is the only thing that matters. If you're hiring for a CEO for your company and they love the company, but they suck.
Love what you got going here, but I can't show up on time. But I love that you said it's a worthy thing to like go along with, because regardless or not, the answer is if that person didn't show up, it's almost damn near like they didn't love you.
Exactly. It doesn't help you to sit there like lamenting someone who's still out there in the world, but they love me so much. Pointless.
Yes. Okay. This one I'm excited. Every relationship problem boils down to a decision. Is the love worth the pain? Again, this is what we were talking about earlier on in the conversation, this idea that love is painful, that I think that a lot of people completely reject.
Wow.
And
Do I get to know who said this?
You do.
I don't know who said this.
This is Mira Kirschenbaum from Too Good to Leave, Too Bad to Stay. You here for it or not?
Oh, interesting. That almost changes the context of it.
Well, explain it to us.
Well, that phrase scares... Do you swear on this
Of
show?
course.
This scares the f***ing shit out of me.
I love that we got two.
That phrase is terrifying.
It is terrifying.
Because it's a mandate for any and all kinds of abuse.
And I think
Right.
that's why people hate it.
Now, if someone was...
But I actually
but
think
there's
that somebody's going to hurt you in love.
But I
it doesn't
think
have to be
that-
abusive, but I do think people are there.
But in some ways, it's like literally true, if you know what I mean. If someone,
Yeah.
the moment you decide that the love isn't worth the pain anymore, that's the day you leave, right? So in a very real sense, that actually is true. When someone is in a relationship for 20 years and they, have been abused or they've been disrespected in that relationship,
just
they've
not
been
getting the love they
betrayed,
need.
or just betrayed over and over. When you start on the outside of a relationship, anyone would look at it and go, how is this person still tolerating this?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is not because they're not in tremendous, terrible pain. It's that for whatever reason, for them, the pain has not
Overseeing the love.
It's not gotten to a point yet where the pain is the headline. The love is still the headline. When the pain becomes the headline and all of a sudden, even someone who's swore by how much they can't leave their partner finally goes, I can't exist in this hell anymore, no matter how much I love them. That is the point at which you leave. So I think as a true statement, that's real. That the moment someone leaves is the moment the pain exceeds the love. But it's a very dangerous, to take as a kind of mandate is a very dangerous
love is
thing.
pain.
Yeah, and it's like,
vibe.
what I'm saying, I can almost see someone, especially a younger person, seeing that as almost a romantic notion that this person causes me so much pain, but, that's what it is you figure it out because you love them. That's a really
what it
dangerous
ends up turning
thing.
into. Okay, love is giving something you don't have to someone who doesn't want it. So I'm going to repeat that. Love is giving something you don't have to someone who doesn't want it.
Love is giving something you don't have to someone who doesn't want it. That sounds...
This is Jacques Lacan, which
is he describing
obviously
like
a lot.
Unrequited love?
So I guess...
Giving something you don't have to someone who... Oh, wait, let me try and decode that. So it's like... Is he saying it's easy to give what's easy to give, but when you don't have something,
yes,
that's love.
I think that's how I'm taking it. Love is when you, give something that you don't have. Are willing. Maybe the willing would have been great, but it's like I'm willing to go above and beyond for you, even if I don't have it, and even if you don't want it. I think you should have it.
Sounds pretty terrible. I don't know if I agree with any...
And he's so interesting with words and languge, so
I don't know if I agree with any of this. I don't... I mean, firstly, the idea of giving something you don't have is a really dangerous one, depending on the context. But I
don't know if he's being sarcastic or not.
I could see people interpreting that as like, I've got nothing left in the tank, but I'm going to give it anyway. I'm going to give more anyway. Like, that's a dangerous notion. How many women do you know that never give to themselves and keep giving to somebody else? So that one concerns me. And to someone who doesn't want it, sounds an awful lot like unrequited love to me.
And also it kind of sounds like he's saying, I mean, again, thinking about the background of Jacques Lacan, love in this context to me is something none of us have. And then we're giving it to people that maybe don't even want it because they don't know that it's there to have. Like, all of it seems really dark.
Love that we...
Okay, I'm going to do this last one because I love this person who said this. And I just heard her speak recently, and she's just so interesting. So, the victim-perpetrator model of infidelity is outdated. Affairs are not necessarily a sign of a broken relationship, but can sometimes be an attempt to stay connected with parts of ourselves.
Is that Esther Perel?
Of course it is.
Yeah. This one I know.
She's so unique.
She's really unique. I literally just spoke to her 2 weeks ago.
Nice flex.
Yeah,
Me and Esther just on the phone.
Well, she was on my show. Yeah.
Amazingly
She's so
cool.
good. Her work is fascinating because she breaks out of that traditional stereotype of, someone just had an affair because they don't love you, or someone had an affair because they're not happy, and
brings it down to what I think it really often is what we do is about us. So that psychoanalysis element that she brings to it, I think, is really what it makes it less about this person and more about me.
Yes.
Why I'm doing things. It's my accountability of why I do things.
Exactly. She had a great line, something like, affairs happen when desires break free from the relationship, like when desire gets out. And that's a scary thing for people because they're like, well, how do I stop desire getting out of my relationship?
What does that even mean? Type of vibe.
But I think there's a lot of truth to asking those questions. What was going on in my relationship that made me feel I had to seek something elsewhere? Was it because of something I was unwilling to communicate?
Yeah, like how did I let the intimacy between this union become me solo?
Yeah.
And I'm unable to share. Yeah,
I'm unable to share. And there's a lot of blame on partners by some people of like, well, they should have given you more. They should have done more. But it's no. What was happening with me that I didn't share. And if I have shared, I didn't share how close I was to doing something like that. Or I didn't leave the relationship to do something like that. Or I didn't have a standard for my life in that moment that said, that's a line I don't cross. Or that I did have that standard, but I violated that standard in that moment. And how do I make sure, if I'm fortunate enough that my partner stays with me, what's my process? How do I know I never trespass that standard of mine again for mine and their sake? So it brings up a lot, but I do think as Esther's work highlights really importantly, that affairs are very, very complicated things. As you say, I think it's a really great point that affairs are very personal things. And I think it does take it out of that realm of, hopefully for the partner, for the person on the other side, what did I do wrong? Or how am I not enough? Or because those are the questions that then torture us. And the thing I like to say to people on that subject is, whatever someone does to betray you, whether it's an affair or something else, whatever they do to hurt you, we're all very quick to go to, am I to blame?
Yeah.
But you can take accountability for what you think you could have done differently while separating the way they reacted to whatever you did was wrong. That's the difference.
That's right.
You're not responsible for the way they reacted.
That's right.
You could be responsible for saying, oh, I wish
I didn't give you the love you needed.
Yeah,
but
I wish
you
I'd have shown up differently. You could have left. You could have done 100 other things.
Yeah,
but
you didn't have to betray me and yourself.
That was your... Yeah. It's like people in early dating, when someone... when you've heard this term love bombing. Someone comes in and they love bomb you and they manipulate you and you take advantage. then in those stories, a lot of the time, people are like, how could you fall for that? How could you, when someone was telling you all those things that soon or whatever, when they were trying to, telling you they were going to marry you after the first date and this.
But I'm me.
Look, it's. Yeah, exactly.
How could I not believe
Yeah. They're only human. That in that situation, you're responsible for the fact that you gave that person too much too soon.
That's right.
That's
the
true.
boundaries, no boundaries.
But
Not
you're
enough,
not
maybe.
responsible for their reaction to you giving too much too soon was to do something
Take advantage.
terrible.
Yeah.
To scam you or to ghost you or
Literally.
you're not responsible for the bad behavior.
Yeah, the Tinder swindler bit.
Yeah, exactly.
They went too far.
He's responsible for that.
Yeah.
You're only responsible for the instinct in you that gave too much too quickly, and that's worth exploring. That's personal accountability. You're not responsible for the terrible things that they did.
Now, before we go, I know you have a brand new product called Matthew AI that you want to show me today.
We just created this new thing. We've taken all of my books, all of my courses, all of my videos, everything, and downloaded it into Matthew AI. And Matthew AI will now answer your question. If anyone out there is like, how can I ask Matthew a question after listening to this? Go to askmh.com, ASK.
You guys hear this?
mh.com, askmh.com. And you can literally just try it out and ask it any question you want, any dating question. It will tell you texts that you can write for things. Like, it's crazy.
Matthew, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been so nice talking to you. And guys, if you want to check out Matthew AI, go to askmh.com. And of course, check out Matthew's book, Love Life. And I'll see you next time. Also, he has the most important women in his life here, his mother and his wife. So, okay, he's about what he says.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I really lived for hearing Matthew's takes on love and relationships. My takeaway is that even though the idea of finding the one sounds really romantic in a lot of ways, it probably isn't super healthy. Finding a life partner is all about finding a person that has imperfections we can accept and who's willing to put in the work with us. So get out there and find your imperfect person. And I'll see you next week because you know it's your girl.